everyone. Today is Sunday once again, and it's now 2 in the afternoon in the UK. Welcome to another episode of Ask the Drummer. This week's guest, I have actually met him in real life. We met in this cafe in Liverpool called Cafe Tabac. It's a wonderful place that it's like someone said to me that it's actually where you can do a bit of musician spotting in Liverpool, although I haven't seen anyone there. But it's just really good, and it's a great place for a hot chocolate. I would really recommend that if you're in Liverpool, go to Cafe Tabac on Bold Street because that's just really, really good. But anyways, I haven't seen our guest today. I haven't seen him live, but hopefully I will do someday soon. So anyways, my dear friends, please welcome Mr. Carl Henry. Yay.
Afternoon, everyone.
Hello. No, I'm gonna say hello, Carl, because earlier I said hello, Henry. Which is so bad.
And anyone of a vintage age would remember an advert for Mince Morsels where the dog was called Henry, and I think it was Clement Freud or someone was the guy on the telly who was doing it, and so obviously from that day onwards in school I was just called Henry.
Well, I think it's funny that it's both first names, like Carl, and then it's Henry as well. Yeah. So, but anyways, I won't make that same mistake again. I'm gonna call you Carl. But how are you? And do you want to just say hello to our friends?
Yeah, hi everyone. Good afternoon. It's only just started spitting outside, so hopefully that'll clear and we'll have a nice evening. And so nice to see you. Nice to be with you.
And you said that you just got back from your gardening club. Say something about it.
No, there's a bit of a community group, Liscard Links and Egremont, Voice of Egremont, in our local area. We're just going around trying to top the place up a bit and plant, vegetables and have community events and stuff like that, just to brighten the place up a bit, because no one else seems to want to do
it. Do you ask for volunteers or?
Yeah. So if you look for Liscard Links on Facebook, there's a way of getting in touch. So please do. Yeah, we always do.
Well, the last time we met, that's at Cafe Tabac. Is that Tabac or Tabac?
Tabac, I think.
Yeah, it's a really nice place. That.
It's been going years as well. It really goes back a long way.
Well, the last time we were in Liverpool, I took my friends there because I said to them, "You really have to try their hot chocolate. With like cream and marshmallows on top. It's really the best hot chocolate I've ever tasted."
Yeah,
so, and it's
I was just going to say I'm sure they used to do years and years ago before it was trendy. They used to do like smashed avocado and stuff on granary toast. In the 80s and the 90s. So they were ahead of the time because everyone seems to have that now.
Well, I don't eat avocado. It's one of those things. I don't like fruits, but hot chocolate, yes, I will have. Oh my God, sorry. But anyways, it's one of those places because my friend said that it's a great place where like Liverpool musicians, they just go there and they hang out there. But I haven't actually seen anyone. It's not like I frequent that place. I go there sometimes, but. Would you say it's true?
I wouldn't know really because I don't really. I'm not part of the scene, and I wouldn't recognise anyone if I fell over them anyway. So, maybe that is true, and there are quite a lot of clubs and recording studios and practice rooms around Bold Street.
Yeah.
So I guess they've got to go somewhere. So probably there are a few in there.
Yeah, it's a great area, that Bold Street. I love that place. Yeah, it's like bombed out church at the top.
There was a lot of concern when Liverpool 1 opened, which is like gentrification of Liverpool, that it would really impact on that part of town. But it hasn't, I don't think it's got stronger.
Yeah. I remember it was like 3 years ago when we met. And I know it's a Monday because I was on my way to see Ian Prowse. He's doing his Monday club at the cavern. So I remember that being a Monday. I just wanted to say hello because he joined in. It's Aiden O'Rourke. That's actually my husband. Yeah, he loves this show, which I'm really, I'm happy that he does.
Great.
But anyway, so Ask the Drummer, episode 6. It's all about you, Carl Henry. So we're gonna start from the very beginning. So you were born in Wallasey.
Yeah.
You said.
New
So
Brighton.
yeah, so New Brighton, all right. So what's it like growing up in New Brighton or
Um,
Wallasey?
really, really quite free and easy. I guess it was like a childhood. I was born in '61, and New Brighton wasn't on its knees by then. It was still quite good. There's a big amusement arcade, and the open air baths was absolutely amazing. So any time off I got, I was either climbing up trees or swimming in the open air baths in New Brighton. So there's a rumor they're going to try and bring the open air baths back, but it's a rumor.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a lovely place. And my granny had a little rock and plastic ball shop in Talacra in North Wales, and everyone, people of Liverpool and the Wirral know Talacra really well because it was like the haunt, the destination to go to for your summer holiday.
Yeah.
And so I used to spend 6 weeks of my summer holiday out there, and that was even wilder, because there's hardly any houses. The houses that were built were kind of made of wood, and there was no electricity. So we had like gas mantles, where you'd lift like a little light the gas mantle, and
Yeah.
no doors. We had blankets in the way of the way of the bedroom, so that there was no doors or anything. Really, very very simple life, and it's great because there's no distractions really. You can just get on with being a kid,
Yeah,
running around the lanes and stuff.
Yeah, so, but you still live in Wallasey, right?
Yep.
And have you been to the new Brighton? Because it's it's amazing what they've done there now.
Yeah, I mean,
yeah. No, it's just that we went there recently, and there's like a really cool record shop, and then lots of sort of like cool places to go to.
Yeah. Yes, it's kind of again community based. It's not like big chains coming in or anything. It's a guy called Dan Davis is like trying to get funding in, and he's bought a few properties, and people are splashing paint around and putting murals up, and it just really brightens the place up. And it's with it being community led. It's by and for the community, so you don't get foisted something. A monstrosity that you don't like or you never wanted in the first place. It's built from the ground. So more power to them. Yeah.
Oh, that's good. I love that place. I want to go back there. They have mermaids as well. Have you seen the mermaids?
Yeah. What's it about? Yeah. I think someone set one on fire one time, which was a bit unfortunate, but you're always going to get that.
Oh no.
Yeah.
But anyways, what I always do, you being from Wallasey, so I've googled notable on Wikipedia it says notable people from Wallasey. So so it's like Eric Idle from Monty Python. He's from there. I thought that Monty Python guys were from London, but he's actually Eric Idle.
Yeah.
And Jenny Frost from Atomic Kitten. Cool. Oh, also Jane Casey.
Oh yeah.
I believe it's her birthday today. Happy birthday,
it is. Happy birthday, Jane.
Yeah.
Jane's got quite a big Wirral connection there. I think her granddad built Half Man Morton, if I'm right.
Oh, right.
Yeah, the granddad was a property builder. He's a house builder.
Oh, I see. Because they have a place in Liverpool called District Bar at the Baltic Triangle, and whenever I go there, I always bring my book with me, asking people to sign it. And I also ask, is Miss Casey around? But I never seem to get her. She's not there. So
she's busy.
Yeah, well, someday I will catch her. But anyways, I just also want to say Trevor, hello to Trevor Palmer. He's also joined us as well. I said hi, Anne and Carl. Hello, Trevor. Yeah, he was at King B yesterday. He's really nice. Yeah, lovely presents he gave me. So, anyways, oh, also there's the Boo Radleys. They're from Wallasey as well.
Absolutely great band.
Brilliant.
Great
Yeah,
band.
and as for drummers, oh yeah, and they're back as well. I was just gonna say the Boo Radleys are back, but without Martin Carr,
Yeah.
so it's just the three of them. And as for drummers, I found out that there's Nigel Olsen who drums for Elton John.
Right.
He's
Right.
from Wallasey apparently, and
Didn't know that.
Warren Bugs Pemberton, who's the Undertakers. Apparently, it's like
Yeah.
a Mercy Beats,
A
like
classic band. Yeah. Yeah. They used
yeah,
to drive around in a hearse.
yeah. So there's them and you, of course, from Wallasey.
Oh, definitely.
Right. So when you were young, did you see anyone say on Top of the Pops or maybe a band, and then you think, well, this is what I wanted to do.
Oh
I wanted
yeah.
to be a drummer.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. The way I guess it happens to everyone, doesn't it? You know, you sort of
Yeah.
all of a sudden you realise, wow, music, that's dead sexy. That's great. You know, I was listening to T-Rex, from it's got sort of my earliest memories of actually really getting into music, you know, rather than it just washing over you, you know. And the only thing is, my dad was a bit of a traditionalist, so he wouldn't let us watch Top of the Pops. But we used to go to a youth club, which is the YMCA, and up in the top room, they had a tiny little telly, and we'd have to move the aerial around, you know, and everyone would be really, you know, gathered round like it was a full room, tiny little room. And then 7:30 came on a Thursday night, and it was like, there we go, you know, and try and see some of our heroes, you know.
Yeah. So was there like a drummer that you saw or in a band?
No. I wasn't being. I came into drumming by accident. Really, I was in school with a mate who was setting a band up, and he said to me, "Right, we need a singer and a drummer," and I was like, "Don't come near me with a microphone. I can't sing. It's not happening." So I said, I'll play the drums then, you know. So that's how that happened, really. It wasn't because I saw drummers and thought, wow, you know.
Yeah.
But since then, obviously, I've really got into some really great bands with great drummers, you know, and so just like absorbing music. And I remember sitting on the bus when I was about 10, reading about Alice Cooper, you know, and this kind of stuff, and it all being really mad, you know, like he was dressed as loads of makeup on and snakes and things like this, and you know, so I got into Hawkwind and Black Sabbath and all these bands, and used to go over to the Empire and watch them, you know, when I was underage and stuff, you know. My brother had taken me.
Yeah. So you told me before that you've been drumming since you were 15.
Yeah.
God,
Yeah.
Wow. Well,
Yeah.
what was your first band then? What was the first band that you're in?
The first band I was in was called The Dirge, and we were a kind of it was a kind of reflecting on punk rock, and whether it was a good idea or not, whether punk rock was a good idea or not. The fact that we couldn't, well, I certainly couldn't play. I'd only been playing about 3 or 4 weeks before we did the first gig, you know. So it was punk, I guess, anyway. But
Yeah.
we did a few other different types of covers. We were covering Frank Zappa badly, and covering Bill Nelson, you know, Bebop Deluxe and stuff like that. And we did, so it was all the influences of the band came in. We played on the Four Perch Rock. That was the first gig we did, which was just great, you know. And someone should do something with that venue, you know, because it's looking a bit tired, you know. It'd be great to have that as a music venue again, yeah.
Yeah. So who were your band members? Were there any ones? Or,
Yeah,
like,
so my friend Russ was the bass player, who still see regularly. Dave Lloyd, who now plays with the Suns, and he was in Heaven Tonight. He was the guitarist, and a guy called Simon Shaw was the singer, who is a really, really excellent potter now. He makes great pottery. And I quite often see it displayed in the Blue Coat and things, you know.
So you're still in touch with them now?
Well, not really, no. But I am with Russ, but others, you know, occasionally, yeah.
Yeah.
From like 79 or something.
So it's the Dirge, you said, right?
Dirge,
Is it D-I-R-G?
D-U-R-G-E, yeah.
D-U-R-G-E. So after the Dirge, what's your next band?
Right. So there's a couple of kind of cover bands which I never wanted to be in a cover band, so I didn't stick around really.
Yeah.
The next thing was I had a friend who was the guitarist in a band called TV12, and they needed a drummer.
Yeah, yeah.
And the guy was called Paul Denheyer, and the singer in TV12 was Paul Skillen. So and the bass player was Pete Mackesy. So
Yes.
the four of us got together and got a set together, and we played a few clubs in Liverpool, and we recorded in a little studio in Wallasey. It's not there anymore, and we just we kind of it was like a bit like white reggae type stuff, because the police were happening and all this kind of thing, But it didn't last very long. Maybe 6 months. That might be generous. I don't know, But then Paul Denheyer went off to start a band called Dead on Arrival, and Paul Skillen was at college, and he met Eamon, the keyboard player eventually from This Final Frame, and Jim, our famous trumpet player, who's sadly no longer with us. So they went off to do that, and they had a kind of a drum machine, and the others had a drummer. So I was just fiddling around doing bits and bobs, but our paths came back together again, and I eventually. Dead on Arrival turned into a band called 13 Across, which then turned into Politburo, and I joined at that stage, and so it was just a three-piece with Ian Jackson on bass, Paul Denheyer on vocals and guitar. Ian was a vocalist as well, and me on drums. And then I think Paul Skillen wanted a fuller band. He didn't want to rely on drum machines, so he asked me to come in and join the band. So I ended up with both bands, being the drummer in both bands. And then I joined at the same time. I joined another band called The Third Man, which I was only occasional drummer for, but I was in three bands at one stage in the early '80s. And I think it may be that, like at that time, it was like synth pop was really happening. Depeche Mode and stuff, all that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And
new wave, as we call it in the Philippines. Yeah.
Right. And so I think it was deeply unfashionable to be a drummer, because everyone wanted like these weird drum sounds off drum machines, So drummers were really quite sought after. So that's why I ended up in three bands.
I was actually going to ask you this. I'm glad that you already mentioned it, because when I was researching for your other band, I came across this interview with Paul Denheyer. It's on a website called cloudberryrecords.com.
Right.
And he did mention that TV12. And apparently that was his first gig, you play this TV12 at Eric's. And that's the reason why I wore this, because I wasn't going to wear this T-shirt. I was going to wear a different T-shirt, but then I thought, I'm going to mention Eric's. So I might as well talk about it. But so that's TV12 then became This Final Frame.
And Politburo, really, in many ways, because obviously Paul Denheyer then went off to do his own thing, and so for that was the roots of both bands, really. TV12,
Yeah.
We've still got some recordings somewhere of
TV12.
Yeah, really early.
What's it like playing at Eric's? That's a legendary venue, isn't it?
Yeah, great venue. Yeah, I mean, it's like everything. You hear about these classic, great big venues like the Royal Albert Hall and all the rest of it, which I'm sure it must be amazing. Love to play there, But you get a decent tight band in a little sweaty club. That's when the magic happens. It's like it's great. I've had the best times when I've been in a small venue and watching a band up close, and you can almost touch them and stuff. It's great. That's the best way to see a band.
Well, this compilation album here, Jobs. I don't know if you can see it, but it's Jobs for the Boys. It's got a track from This Final Frame, Monday's Child.
Yeah.
And also from Politburo, which is Innocence.
Yeah.
Innocence, yeah.
Yeah.
And I was just checking it. It was released in 1984. Um, so during that year, you were already drumming for both bands.
Yeah, it must have been 82, I think, possibly. That you know we were both active. I mean,
Yeah,
fortunately, I mean, it's weird because I was getting the best of both worlds, really. Because drummers, I feel, you know, I'm not going to moan about being a drummer, but one of the issues about being a drummer is being able to rehearse at a decent level, you know, because you can't. I used to practice in my bedroom, and my mum would have the brush on the ceiling, you know, you know, so it's quite difficult. So the ideal scenario for a drummer is a band that's doing loads of gigs, you know, because it keeps you fluid and it keeps you going.
yeah, yeah.
So, you know, I was really made up to be in Politburo because we were a band that was very keen on getting out and being a live band. Whereas this Final
Yeah,
Frame were a little bit more kind of not introspective, but we were a little bit more technical. And Paul wanted to use sequence patterns and like
yeah,
drum loops and stuff, you know. And so I'd be getting fed those through headphones and playing to a sequence pattern, and it was all really technical and playing electronic drums and all this kind of stuff. So you know, I was kind of like having the live, you know,
yeah. Of course, yeah,
events
yeah.
with Politburo and a lot of kind of technical recording type stuff with this Final Frame. So it was great for me, you know.
All right. Oh wow, it's so good. Well, I've got several singles of this Final Frame. I mean, there's one, of course, that you gave me there. That
Mm.
one, and these other three 7 inch as well. But
Yeah.
the one that's really become popular in the Philippines is I haven't got that one because it's actually quite rare and
Oh,
expensive.
yeah. You
Yeah,
posted a
it's
picture of it, didn't you? On,
yeah.
I mean, I shouldn't
Stormy.
do this, but that one.
That one, yeah.
It's about the
Right now,
grumpy,
that
very
there's
grumpy drummer.
there's a really interesting story about the sleeve.
Yeah.
So, so do you want to tell us about
Yeah.
the?
Well, yeah, there's a guy called Ian Piper who was doing our artwork, and we really loved
Yeah,
what he was doing, you know. And so we'd asked him if he'd do the sleeve for this one, but and he dutifully, you know, did it. He lives in Brighton now, you know, but he was a great artist, you know. He still does a lot of stuff, and
yeah.
he produced this thing for us, which we didn't end up using because the company wanted to use a photograph of the band. They wanted to know what the band looked like, but not just that. They wanted to know what the band looked like in stupid shirts, you know. No idea why, you know. And then to cap it off, they printed it in bowling ball
Yeah,
vinyl.
it's like splatter,
Yeah.
splatter vinyl.
So yeah, and I was being interviewed by Con McConville in Radio Merseyside a few years later, and
Yeah.
when we were doing a session for Politburo on Radio Merseyside, and he pulled this out to embarrass me, you know, in front of everyone. Thanks for that, like, you know.
Well, I think Dr. Skillen wasn't happy with that either, was he? I
No,
mean,
no, Paul was very keen on using what Ian Piper had done, and quite rightly, you know.
yeah.
I mean,
Well,
we did end up using some of it.
that's been rectified though, because in 2020, last year, JB Records, Joy Between Records, she released an album or a mini album, and she's used the original artwork, which is this one, I think, and it's called
Yeah,
The Story of This Final Frame.
yeah,
Now,
yeah.
I didn't get a copy of that because
Oh, this is
no,
your
because
copy. This is yours.
oh no, it's actually I've heard about it, but I didn't realize that it was released. And when I found out that it was already, it's already sold out. It was
Yeah,
sold out when I found out that, oh my god,
I know, I know. I just think, you know, obviously it costs a lot of money to print vinyl, and it's
yeah, yeah, yeah.
but certainly there's one here for you. So we'll meet up.
Oh,
We'll
I
have
think
another hot chocolate.
oh well, it's the Filipinos who actually, I think they're the ones who bought all these records because they
Right.
love, they love collecting vinyl, and of course we love stories.
Mm.
That song is just, and I'm sure you've heard from Dr. Skillen, or you we've heard from maybe other Filipinos, that it wasn't cold stories in the Philippines when they were playing that. They were so protective of that, song,
Yeah.
that they named it something else.
Well, that was the case for quite a few bands, wasn't it? I think
Yeah.
that the WXB 101, a few
102, yeah, double XB
102,
102.
right, right.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
101 with the enemy.
One of it.
But yeah, so effectively, I think it was because of the entrenched government were trying to they were trying to find out what the youth were listening to and trying to identify with the youth, and so they would try and play the same records that the pirate stations had played. And so the pirate stations decided to change the names of the songs and the bands,
Yeah.
so the government couldn't find out what the youth were up to.
Yeah, and then it's crazy because after that, you actually released this 10 portraits and you
Well,
dedicated it to the Filipino fans,
that's
which
right.
I just thought it's amazing, isn't it? I was like,
Well,
it's for us.
I mean, it's probably a story that's worth telling, but because it's so ridiculous. But what happened was we'd always kept in touch. The band we kind of sort of had a few different iterations of the band, and I left for various reasons, for other commitments, and we always kept together, and we got back together at Paul's because he was always the kind of the linchpin, and so he cooked us a meal, and we all turned up, the five of us, and it was around about 2007, and it was around about that time that that MySpace was starting to bubble up.
Yeah,
People were talking about, wow, that's amazing.
Everybody's got MySpace in those days.
Yeah, there was no Facebook or Instagram or Twitter or anything like that. That was the first real platform where you could start to upload stuff. So while we were cogitating over our meal and stuff at Paul's, we agreed, why don't we just put a MySpace page up for this final frame for old fans who might want to just reminisce or whatever. So one of us did this, and the next thing is we got all this traffic coming over, emails from the Philippines saying, where the hell have you been? And we love your songs and all this kind of stuff, and we were completely amused by it all. And what had happened was that this had been bootlegged in the Philippines, and it was a dance hall kind of song. It was the song before last of to get rid of everyone at the club. So don't know what that tells us about it. It was the song before the slowie, should we say? And it was like an institution, and we had no idea. So after that, Paul and I said, well, why don't we start, writing some new tunes and see if we can get anywhere? And so Paul wrote the first song called Always, and we enjoyed it that much that we carried on. We made this album here.
Yeah,
it was actually
I've got
released.
that blue. Yeah.
My Blue Heart. So that was released on Universal in the Philippines, and it was just it was just a joy to do. So we ended up, a couple of years later, doing the next one.
Doing another one, yeah.
But it's so nice to hear. I mean, people from all over the world were contacting us and stuff, and some fans sent us the artwork for this. So why don't you use this? So we did. And it was like a group effort. Really good. But it was all recorded on a laptop. Here.
Yeah. Oh, that's brilliant. I mean, as you know, the Filipinos love you. I mean, Filipino new wavers, they all know stories. And yeah, it's a great sort of like dance tunes. Let me just say hello to Guy Keegan. Oh my god, hello Guy. Guy Keegan's from the Railway Children.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah, it's John of the Railway Children. Thanks for watching, Guy. So that's this final frame, which of course, like I said, the Filipinos really love it. But I also wanted to talk to you about Politburo. This one here, again, it's another one that's really good. I got Ian Jackson to sign it because I saw him recently at Preston Pop Fest. So it is really nice, Ian Jackson. Do you know, if you go on Discogs, your entry on Discogs actually says an indie rock band from Hereford, UK.
Hereford?
Yeah.
Oh, that's interesting. Close,
It was all like thinking, is Paul Den Hare from Hereford? Or
no, No,
he's not. He's from the Wirral, right?
yeah, yeah, we're all from the Wirral. Yeah, that's somebody's had a bit of a like an imagination on there. But there is another band called Politburo, I think, who came after us. Really, they were later on, and they're Manchester, but no, not Hereford.
Oh, yeah. Well, the one that saw like on Discogs has got this single, so I'm pretty sure it was your
Yeah,
band, but it
yeah.
just says from Hereford. And I was sort of like somebody ought to sort of like change that into the Wirral instead of Hereford.
Yeah. Well,
But
it's, it,
after
yeah.
yeah, sorry. So after
Yeah.
Port Bureau, now this is really good. I've actually got a surprise for you because look at this.
Oh, yeah. Right.
I got
Yeah.
this from work. I got this from work yesterday. When I saw it, I was like, "Oh my god, that name,
Yeah.
Fishmonkeyman! I know that."
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah,
It's,
that was the band that came on from Politburo, via a few
yeah,
other bits and bobs. But yeah.
that's in the 90s.
Yeah, yeah. So 91, really, that was released. Yeah, but I mean, so the 84, the Politburo single, Euphoria, that
Yeah.
was recorded in New Brighton in a studio called Station House. Um,
All right.
yeah, and it was a really good studio, and sad to see it go. But a friend
It's
of
gone.
mine, yeah, it's just an empty building now. It's part of the station, the New Brighton station, but it used to be a recording studio, and it was really good.
All right.
For
So what's
local
in
music.
there now? Just nothing. What's
No,
in there?
no. I think
No.
no. I think they're trying to sell it. I'd like to make it into a studio again, but is it viable? It'd be great. But what happened to us? We were playing a nightclub in Liverpool. I can't remember which one. It was either the System or the Warehouse or one of those, the venue or something. And the in-house engineer was just twiddling his knobs while we were doing the sound check, and for some reason he really liked what we were doing. It was just Paul Denhay, Ian Jackson, and myself, and
Yeah.
he kind of went, "Oh, hang on!" He ran up onto the stage and started fiddling with all the gear, and doing things,
Yeah.
and we didn't know what was going on, but he was basically, he was doing a really, really good sound for us. He wanted to do the
Yeah.
best
Yeah.
that we could. And then we found out later it was a guy called Dave Dix, who is he's the one of the principal songwriters in Black. So he was playing with Colin Burncombe at the time, and he was producing all Colin's stuff and writing a lot of the music, and a really talented bloke. And then so I think it was possibly the next day or a couple of days later, we were booked into Cargo Studios in Rochdale to just do a demo. And we pulled
Yeah.
up in the van outside Cargo. Next thing is this Vespa comes screaming up to the van, stops, and he takes his helmet off, and it's Dave Dix. And we were like, what are you doing here? And he said, "I've come to engineer your session." And we were like, wow, brilliant. So we ended up having a really good relationship with Dix, and he actually produced that single from In
Yeah.
Station, the Euphoria single. And he did as much work with us as he could, and he went on to do Fishmonkeyman as well.
Fishmonkeyman. Well,
Mm.
from this article that I was reading, Den Hare said that it's a song that he wrote when he was still in Politburo, but never played it. And I think he said something like he told the band members how do you like Fishmonkeyman as a band name? Because and it's all in just one word. It's not
Right.
like Fish Monkey Man. It's like Fishmonkeyman. Yeah, and you all agree that it's a nice name. So
Yeah, well, it was
that's
yeah. He was walking up Elston Road one time, and he said he was describing the song to me, Fishmonkeyman song, and he said he wanted these cellos kind of like jump, 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 really driving and percussive and stuff like this. I don't know if we managed to get cellos on it, but the song itself is really good.
yeah,
And it appears on the album later. So yeah,
yeah.
it was
Well,
based on the song.
yeah. Well, another thing that I found out. So you were with Fishmonkeyman from 1988 to 1991, but
Yeah,
then Alan Curry of Candy Opera
yeah, yeah,
became their drummer.
yeah.
So he was with Fishmonkeyman between 1993 and 1997. And I was like, Oh my God,
Yeah,
because I've never heard of Fishmonkeyman before. And Alan Curry, I know he was in Coming Tokyo
yeah,
with Frank Mann, who's also from Candy Opera. But after that, I mean, it's like, like I don't know if you know it, but Candy Opera is like really one of my
yeah.
most favorite.
I know you like Candy Opera, yeah.
I know, yeah. So
And
I
it's,
was just really shocked when
yeah,
I found out that he's actually, he was the drummer of Fishmonkeyman as
yeah,
well. So,
yeah, yeah.
wow.
I went off to do some college, get myself educated and stuff, and I think I think there were 35 Summers were involved in that lineup as well. Something,
Yeah, yeah. That's
but
also another band that Alan Curry was.
yeah.
35 Summers. Yeah, I
So yeah,
forgot to ask. I forgot to ask you before. Were you so like? Did you go to drumming? Did you have drumming lessons or?
no, no, not my
So,
friend. My friend taught me on the couch. He said you don't need a drum kit, you just need the couch. Just whack the couch in different. So, and you can tell now by my playing, like, it sounds like someone hitting a couch.
so that's a good advice then for those so like good
Yeah,
aspiring drummers. Have a couch, not you
yeah.
don't need drum kit. Oh well,
The
but
first
that's
thing
really
drummers, I think the first thing drummers need to do when once they've decided, they're going to be a drummer, is pass the driving test. Otherwise, you end up carrying drum kits around to rehearsal rooms. You need loads of friends, to help out, like, But yeah,
yeah. You need to have your own car if you wanted to be a drummer. Right. Well, I just think I like the saying that we learn something new every day, which we do really. So it's just for me knowing that Alan Curry was actually sort of like drummed for this one. I just think it's fascinating. But
yeah.
anyway, so after that, um, I think that's when we get to Half Man, Half Biscuit, right? After is that your next band
Um,
after?
yeah, well, a brief. I kind of joined a band called Drive for a few months, and a band called Cellophane as well, just helping out really. We didn't do any gigs; we were just rehearsing new material really. Although Cellophane did a couple of gigs, I think we played Labato in Liverpool one time and a couple of other places. But yeah, generally I wasn't doing a great deal live or studio work at all. And then I was kind of coming up to the end of me education, getting a degree in I was microbiology. I was doing in John Moores University, and just getting
Hold on,
towards the
sorry. Are you a doctor as well, like Doctor
no, no, no,
Skills?
no.
Shall I call you Doctor Henry?
Father Henry. No, so I wasn't really, it wasn't in me mindset to actually, start playing a lot of music again, and then
Yeah.
one of me good mates, Ken, who has been in a few bands with Ken Hancock, he he was in Fishmonkeyman as well, so he joined me in Drive and a couple of other bands, and then he phoned me up in I think it was March or April '96 and said, "Oh, the Half Man Half Biscuit need a guitarist," and I was like, "Oh, great, Ken, go for it! That sounds brilliant." And he was, they need a drummer as well, or they're looking for a drummer, So, I was like, thinking, I absolutely love the Biscuits. It just make me howl laughing. Well, just great music and great comedy, great depth of lyricism.
Yeah.
It's indescribable, really. You've got to delve in. I was going to send you a couple of links, but I thought, no, you've got to do it in your own time. You've got to delve
But
in
yeah,
and
yeah.
really concentrate on the stuff, because it's worth endeavoring to.
Yeah. Well, like told you before, I mean, I'm not really very familiar with the Half Man Half Biscuit,
No.
but I don't know if you know this, but in the Philippines, there's a band called Half Life, Half Death, and it's the singer is this guy called Alfie Miller, and
Oh
he's
yeah, Alfie, yeah, yeah.
and he's helped Dr. Skillen with his book, this Cowspot book. But anyways, I don't know if they actually got their name from Half Man Half Biscuit, but yeah,
You
that
never
was
know. Yeah,
yeah.
I did see that name, and I wondered, because there's been all sorts of imitations. Like there's a food shop in Brighton called Half Man Half Burger, and all this kind of thing. It's been kind of it has become. But as we were discussing earlier, I mean, the fact that the kind of themes that Nigel Blackwell, who's the writer in Half Man Half Biscuit, that comes up with are quite specific, certainly to like British culture, and
Yeah.
and even more local culture as well sometimes. But so it would never kind of travel to the Philippines, really.
Oh
I'm sure there is like a fan out there.
I played this again today. This Camel Laird Social Club.
Yeah, yeah,
And it's just so like tracks like the light at the end of the tunnel. No, I mean the titles itself are just really funny. It's
yeah,
like is the light of an oncoming train.
yeah, yeah,
And then there's another one called it's like track 6 where it says the referee's alphabet.
yeah, yeah.
That's another so like funny one as
Yeah,
well.
well, there's quite a theme of football, but sport in general going throughout
Yeah.
the thread throughout the biscuits. Also want for Christmas is a Duke of Prague away kit, and stuff like this. And dead men don't need season tickets, fucking hell, it's Fred Titmus, it's about it. And actually seeing Fred Titmus in the supermarket somewhere.
Well, there's another one off this album because I've been listening. So like, this album because it's the only one that I've got, anyways. But there's another one called 27 Yards of Dental Floss, and she still won't give me a smile. I mean, I don't know if I'm allowed to say this, but it sounds like a status quo. So it sounds a bit like status quo.
Right.
Maybe
Yeah.
that's not a good comparison, but
Well, you mean the musical style of that song?
yeah, the musical style, not the lyrics, but the
Yeah.
musical style.
Yeah.
But, yeah, but when I was listening to it this morning, it was like I thought that line is just so funny. Where it says 27 yards of dental floss, and she still won't give me a smile.
Yeah. The third-rate Les and his Burberry Fez, it's just you can't you can't document what goes through that guy's mind. He's just complete one-off. Yeah, but I say I think there's something like 14 albums out at the moment, so you take your time.
Yeah, well, 15, I think it says 15, right? And
Right.
are you so like doing your 16th album or recording?
There's more in the post. Yeah, yeah.
Well, Trevor said that Half Man Half Biscuit references are very British, and he's going to see you next year in Leeds. So is there like a tour?
Well, I mean, it's one of these little myths that's cropped up about Half Man Half Biscuit being really lazy, never really wanting to tour and stuff. And correct, we don't tour. But what we do is we just play on a very regular basis. So usually it's one a month, So within a 12-month period, we'll have done 12 gigs, maybe a couple more, depending on the year, And we rehearse religiously, in next to a church, and so we are busy outside of this horrible pandemic, of course, which has completely flattened everything. But generally, we're always either rehearsing for concerts or rehearsing for new material.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, I just want to say hello to Monty Mendigoria.
Hi,
He's
Monty.
the host of It's All About New Wave. And I don't know if you've seen it, but Dr. Skillen was on his show a few weeks, I think months ago or something.
Yeah. I tell you,
hello, Monty.
I learned so much on that program. I was like, really? Did we do that? I can't remember that. But,
so it's just saying hi, Anna and Carl. So,
hi,
yeah, because doing this, having this as the drummer is quite, for me, it's good because I'm always interested in like the history of the bands and everything. So doing all these research about Half Man Half Biscuit, especially one because I remember the first time I became aware of the band, I went to it was actually when we did the filming for Scouse Pop in 2016.
Yeah.
I was sort of like just wandering around Liverpool, and I came across this shop called News from Nowhere
Right.
on Bold Street.
Yep.
And I went in, and I've noticed that they've actually got loads of merchandise, so like Half Man Half Biscuit merchandise, like
Oh,
T-shirts and like
yeah.
CDs and stuff. And I was all like thinking, who
Mm,
are they?
yeah.
Who's Half Man Half Biscuit? But it sounds, I mean, the name itself, so like, oh, that's interesting, you know. I mean, especially knowing that there's a Filipino band called
Yeah.
Half Life,
Yeah.
Half Death.
Okay. Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
knowing them first, and then finding out about Half Man Half Biscuit.
Mm. Well, yeah. Yeah. I mean, you'd probably the best way to immerse yourself in the band and understand it is to come to one of the you know
One
the
of the
concerts.
gigs.
Yeah. So, and you're a gregarious person. You're always on the train up and down the country, watching bands, and put everyone to shame. It's amazing what you get up to.
I might
So,
go with Trevor. Go to
yeah.
Leeds and see you.
Well, let me know.
Yeah,
Let me know if you do.
yeah. Um. Also, I've found out that there's actually like websites devoted to the lyrics of Half Man Half Biscuit
Yeah.
songs.
Yeah.
There's one called Half Man Half Biscuit.uk, and they've got like 200. It's called 206 pop songs picked over by pedants,
Yeah.
and they're like all the songs, and they're analyzing it and studying it, and I'm like, oh
Yeah.
my god.
I know. Yeah, it's amazing. You know, some people must have spent their life work. There's another one, the Half Man Half Biscuit lyrics project, which you know, and they both cross-reference each other. You know, um,
Yeah, yeah,
the amount of research that people do, you know,
yeah,
and it's great, you know, because you know, if people find it inaccessible, you know, because they don't quite understand the references because of their age or whatever, or wherever they're from, you know, it actually, you know, contextualizes some of the songs and you know the reason behind the lyrics. Like, you know, they get it wrong sometimes, but um, you know that's the way of the world. But it's just great, you know, more power to their elbow, you know, because they're real enthusiasts, aren't they, that do this sort of thing. Yeah.
yeah. Well, Trevor just said he's got a spare ticket, so you know, if he's still got it next year, I will go to Leeds. You know, go and visit my daughter as well because she's
Oh
there
yeah,
now. So
yeah,
yeah, so then I'll go and see Half Man Half Biscuit. I'm probably the only person there who's like, oh my god, what's happening?
yeah. By that time, you'll have heard a few more by that time, and I'll send you some stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, but I've also read this article that apparently it's still Half Man Half Biscuit is still seen as a comedy band, and that some people actually don't take you seriously. But
Yeah. Mm.
you know,
I
what do
mean,
you think?
yeah, that's up to them. You know, everyone gets from music what they get. You know, and it depends how much work you want to put in to actually understand what's going on behind it. You know, and there are different levels with Nigel's writing. You know, and on one level, you know, it's hilarious and it's comedy. You know, because he kind of makes jokes with the English language, and you
Yeah,
know, four lads who shook the world and stuff like that, you know, instead of four lads who shook the world, you know, he just plays with words, you know, but a lot of the time, you know, he's doing that, but he's also conveying a story underneath it all as well, you know, and um,
yeah,
it does take a lot of you know, of kind of concentration, and it's not just music you put on at a party, you know.
yeah.
That was good.
It's is it like political?
Not so much
Not
politically,
really.
and not in as in party politics, but certainly as in you know,
State of the country
comment,
and
yeah, a statement on the, you know, commentary on the way of the world, certainly the way of the world, um, and then beyond, you know, what's going on in wider society, and how, you know, how it can be deeply depressing at times, you know, to see what people actually do get up to, you know. But No. He's an entertainer. That's what he does. He's he's a thinker, and he's able to convey his thoughts, which are often incredibly amusing. But that's not all they are. And he's just very, very skilled at putting these down on pen and paper and writing songs, and
Right.
the rest of the band interpret what they can from what they're trying to achieve.
So how long have you been playing with Half Man Half Biscuit?
I think
When did you join them?
96, so it's getting on for 25 years.
Wow.
Yeah, 25 years.
And I was told that Ian Jackson was also once a member of Half Man Half Biscuit as well.
Yeah, Ian's a great bass player, and also, his sensitivities around music fit that slot really well. He grew up in the same era with the same influences and stuff. So he joined for a while as well. But there's been quite a few changes. The second drummer they had got the opportunity to join a band that was actually touring and had a deal and all this kind of thing. So he went off. He was called Carl as well. Carl Alty, yeah. And then so that's where I got the call, so we were swapping one Carl for another, so it didn't make
so it's easier. So I call Carl the drummer.
Spinal Tap drummers.
So now that we're sort of like I'm not going to say that it's over, because it's pandemic is still not over. We still have to be careful and stuff. But now that we're actually seeing people and we can go to gigs and stuff. So did you say that you meet up regularly and you're sort of like
we have
got a new album? You've got a new album coming out?
Well, there's new material, I can't say much about when it's going to.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
Because there are a number of factors. It's not quite. We're ready, to go.
You're ready to do gigs.
Again. Oh yeah, well it won't take long. We'll have a couple of rehearsals and we'll be up and running again. Well, it has been difficult. I mean, I'm a carer I've been a carer for my dad and my mum, and so I've had to really be, careful around what I do and, how I interact with people. So I haven't been going into rooms outside, rehearsal rooms and stuff outside my bubble, and I guess now. It does seem like there's there is light at the end of the tunnel.
It's not an oncoming train.
Hopefully not. Well, you're dead right. It hasn't gone away. And so we've got to be very careful. And we're in that situation where we are probably going to be the last kind of venue and band to benefit from opening, because our audiences like to jump up and down. They don't like to sit down on seats and stuff. So it's not like the Philharmonic or anything, So it's just a big room full of people just jumping up and down and singing, which obviously is a contamination risk, So we've got to be very careful about how we go back to it, But fingers crossed, we should be getting there. And we've got about 10 or 11 gigs booked from November this year through till next year, and we've even got a couple booked for 2023 as well. So I've got to buy a 5-year diary. Yeah. So we're playing Home Firth in November.
Oh wow! Well, before I ask you the next question, I want to say hello to my friend from the Philippines, Malu. Malu is my high school classmate as well, so she's in the Philippines. Yeah.
Hi, Malu. Hi.
Yeah. Well, my next question is, what about this Final Frame reunion?
Well, we got that close. Once we'd recorded that. We were getting quite a few people who were saying, well, what are you going to do with it? Why don't you go out and tour? So we'd planned a couple of gigs in this country, and we were thinking maybe if we could arrange it, we could actually get out to the Philippines. And this was about 2016, 17. And Ian Jackson joined the band as the bass player, and Paul was playing guitar, I was on drums, and Jim was still alive then, and he played trumpet, and we had a keyboard player called Steve, who was a good friend. And we actually got a set of songs together, about 12 songs, and we were ready to do it. And then Paul had this minor operation on his knee because he knackered his knee in playing football one time, and it went horribly wrong. And they had to do something totally different, and so he had this leg sticking out, with all sorts of plaster and stuff on it, and,
Oh
and so
no.
he couldn't really go on stage with that, and so I think we were due to play. We were going to be supporting China Crisis on a couple of gigs around the country, and so really looking forward to that. And it was sounding good, we were rehearsing and getting it more or less out. We were happy with how it sounded. But I mean, Paul was here a couple of weeks ago, and I go out to see him now and again. So we're always in touch, and so who knows? Maybe in the future we could do it. But
Yeah,
there's
well,
nothing planned.
when he guested on It's All About New Wave, because they always they were saying that maybe after the pandemic, there's a promoter in the Philippines, Jesse. I don't know if you've heard of Jesse.
Jesse, yeah.
They might do some kind of like a new wave festival, including not just foreign, well, what we call foreign artists, but with local artists as well. So maybe several bands from the UK,
So it's,
new wave bands.
Yeah. More of a collaboration kind of thing. Yeah.
Because it would be nice, it would be nice to sort of like see this final frame on stage.
Yeah, I'd love to.
Hopefully, we'll see. Fingers crossed. We'll see about it. Okay. Right. So 45. Oh, I have to say, I really like your hair.
Oh, yeah. Yours
it really suits you, and the beard. I was sort of like thinking when we had a quick chat last Friday, it's got a sort of like a Paul Simpson look.
Oh, right. Well, it's just pure laziness, I haven't been to the bar. That's all it is. I blame the pandemic, I thought, well, I don't want just leave it, let it go. It'll do its own. And then, but when we met a few years ago, your hair was long and mine was short. Just swap it around a bit.
Now mine is shorter than your hair. Oh my god. Well, I really had to sort of like ask you this as well. So, because you've been drumming for 45 years, and you said that for the drummers, they need to have a car and they need to have a couch to practice on.
Yeah.
But any more advice that you would sort of like give to aspiring drummers?
Yeah, well, I mean, I suppose really don't do what I did. Basically, drumming is. You see like drummers on stage and they're sort of like moving away and the hair's going everywhere and stuff like that. But it kind of what's going on underneath isn't necessarily like that, and the rudiments around drumming and your techniques and controls of your sticks and the way that you divide your body up. So basically when you're a drummer, you've got to do that, you've got to be able to do that both times, right? You split your body in quarters, so your two legs are doing different things than your two arms and stuff. Once you've learned that, that's once you've got over that, you start to develop a sort of a feel for the stick movements and the different rudiments that you can do. And the better you get at that, the better you'll be as a drummer, because what it means is that you can actually put a lot of power and control into what you're doing, without actually whacking hell out of it. I mean, the Biscuits play for 2 hours usually, or 1 hour 50 to 2 hours every gig. So you've got to preserve your energy. So I'd say get your kind of rudiments together and even learn music as well, because drum notation is fairly easy to learn. It's hard to play along to sight read, but it's easy to kind of get your head around when you do. So just put yourself headlong into it and join a band where you're going to get on with everyone, and the music is what you want to play. You want to play that type of music, so choose wisely.
Do you think it's sort of like in you, or because or do you learn it?
Yeah, it's a weird one, that, because I've had a few occasions where I have a kit set up in the house, and I've had people come in and say, "Oh, can I have a go?" Non drummers, and every now and again you'll get someone who just absolutely floors the kit, and like they can just do it, and it's something around, just not really caring about anyone else. They're just in the moment. They've forgotten, where they are, and they're just like, they've lost themselves, and that's an interesting one, really, because
Yeah.
there was a guy who was a singer in an old band, and he was great. He couldn't drum, but he could make some great rhythms and stuff. Just by doing what he was doing. So yeah, I think there's an element whereby, if you can do that, some people coordination is an issue, so maybe they can't, pick it up quite that easy. But generally, I'd say most people could play a set of drums in a week or two.
I can't believe they actually asked you a drumming question, because I said to you, there's no drumming.
Yeah, yeah.
Ask the drummer, it's everything but drumming question.
I'm going to tell you all about me bass drum pedal. I'll show you how my bass drum pedal works and stuff.
I've actually got 2 more questions about drumming. You've been playing for 45 years. Surely there must have been like a disaster. Like a drumming disaster.
The battery's gone on my laptop. Just hold on a sec. Sorry about that. I pressed the wrong on switch. Yeah, disasters. Well, one time my bass drum skin split down the middle during a gig in Liverpool University with this final frame. So that was a bit tricky. So when you lose your bass drum, it's quite serious. So I had to use the floor tom. But apart from that, I've escaped quite quite well from considering probably the dangerous situations that we've been in, clubs where the wiring is sitting in a pool of water, and just things flying everywhere, and drums are quite dangerous, cymbals especially, like you crack your head on them and stuff. But no, I haven't had that many disasters really, apart from making a few cock-ups on stage, which
so no blood or anything. It's not like something flying to you. No. Oh,
no. Someone chucked a whole packet of polo mints at me when I was doing a school concert once. That was quite interesting.
Really?
Yeah, it was good effect actually. They were sort of raining down on the cymbals. Could incorporate that into something, shouldn't I?
And my final question, drummer joke. I mean, being a drummer for 45 years, surely you've heard so many drummer jokes already. So what's the one that, I don't know, maybe your favorite? Well, not really favorite, but really.
Yeah. Well, the one that crops up quite often, because it's one that Nigel's come up with, and he famously has quite a few drummers jokes like dotted throughout the songs, And this one is he's singing in the third person, and it's about a band who are playing a pub, and the singer says, "Oh, have you got any requests?" And one of the audience says, "Yeah, play one the drummer knows." Oh, I think that's probably the best I've heard.
Oh my god! Do you get offended by those things?
No. It makes me think. Right, I'm going to make sure I know that every song, and I'm on the ball. It has the opposite effect, really. You can't get.
Another thing I find is like, because they have like big equipment and stuff, or musical things, they always seem to be like, they look like they've been harassed. Like you have to sort of like make sure that you get all your, and like with a guitarist, as long as he's got his guitar back and all the pedals and stuff, then that's fine. But with you, there's so many bits and things that goes to the drum kit.
Yeah, it is a bit of a problem really, because drummers kind of evolve their own like style and where they like to place everything so that they can play their style, and so when you've got like a gig where there's 2 or 3 bands playing, everyone's pulling the cymbals up and changing the snare drum and doing all that, so it gets a bit some people put nail varnish on all the settings so that they know exactly where it is, but I mean, you go on forever, I always like to try and share a kit where we can, because there's this band called the Jesus Bolt down in Bristol, and they did a song called Three Drum Kits at a Punk Gig, which was saying, really, do you need three drum kits? It's a punk gig, just do it, like. And so I always, I always try and help people, not, especially the engineers, because they're trying to frantically mic up three different kits or whatever, and the swap
Yeah,
over and all the rest of it. It's a nightmare. So you have a bit of patience and just say, well, if you don't move too much on my kit, or if you do, tell me what you're moving. And
yeah.
there have been times when I've come to play the first note of the song, in front of a full audience, and somebody's unscrewed my bass drum pedal, and so there's no bass drum pedal on, and so it's like, oh, what happened there? So you've got to go around and check everything afterwards, But yeah,
Yeah.
it's like furniture rather than an instrument.
But what I always know is that they're the ones who, like with the band, yeah, especially if you're a headliner, most of the band members, they're like hidden. They don't want to come on stage until actually they're about to play, because they have like sound people like doing their guitars and stuff. But with drummers, they always sort of like come out
Yeah,
and make sure that it's them, like you're the one who's actually checking that
yeah, yeah,
everything's
yeah.
fine.
Yeah, I mean, unless you've got a relationship with someone who you absolutely trust,
Yeah.
because the worst thing is if you start, you click 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 click, and you're in, and you're halfway through a song, and you realise that some of your drums are not where you want them to be, and cause you an issue. There's nothing you can do about it in the middle of a song, So you want to
Yeah.
make sure that it looks exactly how you would be wanting to play it.
You like it, yeah, yeah.
But there's got
Yeah,
to be
that's
a bit of leeway there, here and there. You can't be too exact.
yeah. Do you know, I really love that when drummers do that, when they count with their sticks.
Yeah.
I just like, oh my god, that is so
Well,
cool.
so it's great because it can say, right, I want to play this one fast. The rest of the band are going to have to go, right, okay. Well, but no, it's yeah, it is. It's a privilege to start a lot of songs off.
Yeah. Oh, thank you so much. I know we've been on for over an hour now, but I really want to say thank you so much for saying yes to guesting on Ask the Drummer,
It's a
and
pleasure.
I really enjoyed it. I hope you enjoyed the chat as well.
Absolutely. Really
Yeah.
support everything you're doing, Annie. I mean,
Oh, thank you.
apart from Ask the Drummer, just your general enthusiasm for music is infectious
Oh,
and brilliant. And thank you very much for everything.
oh, thank you. Do you want to just say the final, final goodbye
Yeah,
to our
thanks everyone
friends?
for tuning in now or later or whenever.
Yeah,
Let,
it will
let's
be
hope.
on YouTube. It will be on
Oh
YouTube.
yeah.
So, like,
Well,
yeah. Well, Aiden just said that it's very interesting and enjoyable. He
good.
always likes listening to,
Oh,
the
bless them.
musicians or the drummers talking. So,
Great. And so yeah, everyone keep safe, and let's hope we emerge in the forthcoming month or 3 months or whatever, and we can all jump up and down at concerts again.
yeah, yeah, and maybe yeah. I'm really hoping that I can go and see Half Man Half Biscuit next year in Leeds if
Yeah.
Trevor's still got the tickets. All right. Well, thank you so much, Carl.
Thank you. And
I'll see
see you
you. I'll
soon.
see you soon. Yeah.
See you soon.
Bye.
Bye
Bye.
bye.
Bye. Oh, that was so good. Thank you so much, everyone, for watching us live. But oh, thanks, Trevor. Oh, and oh my God, Scrub, thank you so much. But yeah, it's gonna be on YouTube sometime, maybe tomorrow or stuff. But anyways, keep an eye out for next week's guest. It will be posted on the Ask the Drummer page. But for now, I just really want to say, oh, thanks, Trevor. I really want to just say thank you very, very much for watching and for your support and love. And enjoy the rest of your weekend. Um, so it's love music, love live, and of course, love drummers because they're so awesome. One love, everyone. Bye. Bye.